Hi, and welcome to the EMVCo webcast on electric vehicle open payments. Today I'm joined by Arman Aygen, Director of Technology for EMVCo, and I am Oliver Manahan, Director of Engagement and Operations for EMVCo. So quickly on the agenda, we're going to go and do a little bit about who EMVCo is, what it is we do, then why there's a need for electric vehicle open payments and what it is we're working on. More specifically, the scope of work that we're involving ourselves in, and finally, industry engagement and how you can become involved. So first off, the history and mission of EMVCo. Back in the 1990s, a specification was formed called the Integrated Circuit Card Application Specification for Payment Systems. So the goal here was to have a globally interoperable and secure specification with the objective of reducing fraud at retail store locations. To manage this specification, an organization was formed called EMVCo, and this was done in 1999, and the E, the M, and the V are Europay, MasterCard, and Visa. Europay, one of the original founding members, is now part of MasterCard, which is why you don't hear anything about Europay anymore. But essentially, this organization was meant to administer the new specification and enhance payment security and support seamless payment. So we came up with a level 1 test plan in 2000, and then the next member joined JCB, which as contact chip payment was progressing nicely in various parts of the world, it became clear that contactless payments was also an interesting new use case that we could provide specification and testing regimes around. So 2 years after that, in 2009, American Express joined EMVCo as a member. And in 2010, a very important piece, we launched an associates program that allowed interested payment stakeholders to play an active role. So think sort of anybody that's involved in payments, whether processors, merchants, issuers, card vendors, chip vendors, et cetera, terminal vendors, all can join in and play an active role in, defining future direction strategy, things like that. 11 years ago in 2013, UnionPay and Discover became members of EMVCo, so we're up to then 6 members. And in 2014, there was a recognition that, well, the original mandate of chip, contact, and contactless were doing a great job of reducing fraud in card present. There was an ever-growing risk in the card not present space, and so we would expand our scope to include activities in that area, the first of which was tokenization. In 2016, then we formed the 3D Secure specification and published that. A year later, the QR code payment specification. And then in 2019, so somewhat recently, 5 years ago, the Secure Remote Commerce specification was published. Very importantly, in 2022, so 2 years ago, we published the EMV contactless kernel specification. And most recently, just last year, the organization decided that it was important to get involved in electric vehicle open payment initiative, as there's a number of challenges currently with how drivers of electric vehicles, A, charge, B, pay for those charging sessions, and to ensure as much as possible that those payments were seamless and secure, we've decided to initiate some work in that regard. So EMVCo really has 4 core pillars that we operate within. The first one is specification. So I've talked a fair bit about the number of specifications that we have and why we do those to promote secure and seamless payments. We also facilitate approval and evaluation of products for compliance with those specifications. So it's one thing to have the specifications. We need to ensure as well and as much as possible that those that are producing solutions within those specifications are doing so in accordance with the specifications. So we need to have testing and approval around that. We also have EMVCo marks. management group that ensures as much as possible that the marks that we have, and there are a variety of them, contact chip, QR code, click to pay for secure remote commerce. Probably the most commonly seen one is for contactless, the four radial marks that if you see that, you have great certainty that the payment card or device that you use will work with that merchant in a contactless capacity. And what happens in some instances is that organizations globally will use similar marks for their own particular, access or transit or various use cases that might lead people to believe that they can actually use their open payment card or device at that location. So really the marks piece is to guide as much as possible the industry at large to use our marks just for the purposes to which they were meant. So, contactless cardholder will have great certainty that the merchant that they're going to will be able to use their payment device. And the final pillar, industry engagement and collaboration, is really the reason why we're doing this webcast today. Well, we have lots of payment system and payments expertise within the market. We really are looking to go as far and wide with the electric vehicle space as possible and engage with as many organizations within this space as possible. And we'll have more on that later. So how we work with the industry to advance specifications, EMVCo members recognize a shared responsibility for the reliability and security of card-based payment transactions and technology infrastructure that make them possible. So we engage with hundreds of organizations, and I kind of listed at a high level the types of organizations that we engage with. We also speak with regulators, other technical bodies, in various parts around the world as we develop these EMV specifications. And frankly, this has proven to be a very effective model for creating, evolving, and promoting these specifications to see that they're adopted as much as possible. We also do our best to ensure that these specifications support security, flexibility, and innovation. So we provide a common foundation. So if you think sort of a base foundational layer for adopting these technologies, and what we really want to do is have any global market or regional market, I should say, specifics that are required can be implemented with this base layer. So other markets have a particular requirement for perhaps PIN or some other type of cardholder verification. The EMV specifications can support all of these types of implementation scenarios, and those are considered sort of from the baseline upwards. And what we want to be able to do is have that global interoperability, so it doesn't matter if it's a card from one corner of the world coming to a merchant in another part of the world, the expectation is that payment transaction will work. And so the specifications have in fact been widely used to create payment products and services that deliver the trusted and convenient payments for merchants and consumers globally. So being very successful in that regard, and we hope to carry that on as we get into the electric vehicle open payment space. So the need for electric vehicle open payments, there's clearly a growing adoption of electric vehicle across the globe, and it's marks a new era in global mobility, but the charging payment experience presents a bit of a speed bump. And I've personally witnessed this. I'm in Canada. I have somewhere like 9 or 10 apps on my phone right now, and in 3 or 4 instances, I actually have preloaded funds onto these apps. In some instances, I'm in remote locations where I may not be getting great cellular connectivity, so downloading an app becomes problematic. And you can imagine drivers already having range anxiety if they're going in some remote location and they encounter a charging station where they have payment friction or need to download an app. Not only could this be inconvenient, but it could also, to a certain extent, stagnate the adoption of electric vehicles. So our mission is to explore how this fragmentation could be addressed through an open payment approach, making the charging payment experience as convenient as electric vehicles are themselves. Arman, if you'd like to take over from this point.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add on your range anxiety, and we both EV drivers, and I do know that before I had my first electric vehicle, range anxiety was I would say the number one factor that was slowing down me converting to an EV, a full EV. And within the first week of having the electric vehicle, I quickly realized that it was more about the charging experience, and the number of different cards and subscriptions that I had to have um, to be able to charge my vehicle. To your point, you never know who is the operator of the charging station that you end up at. And at the moment, I still have both uh, an old school petrol vehicle as well as an full electric vehicle. And I would say that I have more of I would say, petrol station anxiety at the moment, because the electric vehicle, whenever I am parking the vehicle, I always find an available charge point. So whether it's at home or when I go shopping or I go to a restaurant, or even if I park in a public car park in Cannes, for example, there are available charge points, which means that if I need to fuel the petrol car, just like it becomes a nuisance to have to go out of your way in order to put fuel in your vehicle.
Well, and of
But
course, you have, and sorry to jump in, you're in the south of France where the temperature tends to be quite moderate. Where I am in Canada, if I do a highway drive in the middle of winter, my range anxiety is real.
yeah,
But,
yeah, well, the range is much longer as well.
indeed.
I don't go short distances. Yeah, but to your point earlier on the why, I mean, this bit of fragmentation was one of the reasons why we thought that open payment would be a good idea to help solve that problem, and allow people to actually have the choice of being able to charge the vehicle depending on the situation they're in and the location they're in, and make that available to them. And the other ask, I think, question that we get, which is useful to address as well, is why now? And I think that as a introduction to this slide, the deployment of ISO 15118 as a standard that specifies the communication protocol between the electric vehicle and the charging station being widely adopted, even in North America and in Europe. It's become the de facto standard of communication between the vehicle and the charge point, has made it clear that we reach that inflection point of basically global acceptance that we need in order to be able to address a new technology or specification. So we have two options with ISO 15118. There's the plug and charge, which is providing the option for a direct contract. And basically, the contract can be stored on the electric vehicle. It's recognized by the charging station operator that you stop at. So basically, the contract has to be equivalent to the charging station operator that you have, and provide you that seamless payment and charging initiation. So you plug, and then the vehicle will recognize the contract and start charging. So there's no user interaction required. Now, this works only if you are going to a charging station that you have a contract with, possibly the need for multiple contracts and the management of those, as well as the global interoperability, which is a bit of a challenge. You can have external open payment that can be enabled through traditional contactless payment terminal that you can add to the charging station. You can use existing payment means that you have and payment instruments that you have. There is an additional effort to add that external payment reader to go back to your example about the weather in Canada, these charging stations are not always protected, so they might be under the weather as well, which could have an impact on those. And you may need also additional PCI requirements, and some upgrades might be required. So it's definitely not a seamless experience, and there's basically the additional cost and I would say work that would be required of adding those external contactless readers at every single one of the charging stations. Now, the Secure Technology Alliance, they've published a white paper that was outlining a path towards open payment infrastructure for electric vehicles charging. And they recognize that, having at least 10 different contracts required to get access to the North American charging station network. And that was back in 2021, so that number has increased significantly since. They were suggesting that an open payment infrastructure and technology could greatly improve the user experience. And they thought that EMVCo was the right organization to define that technology. And they proposed that we take on that work of providing a new interoperable and secure open payment capability that could be integrated within the ISO 15118 standard. And through the scope of the work that we have, I'm going to go through some of the examples that we have briefly outlined earlier. As we mentioned, it's still an emerging technology. It's quite fragmented. Oliver, how many different agreements and basically applications do you need in order to be able to charge your vehicle in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of how many you need. I'm not sure. I've downloaded, I think, as many as 11. I might have dropped a couple of those, so I'm down to 9 now, but I think 4 of those are sort of active with funds on them. So yeah, I wouldn't mind if that were fewer than what I have now.
So I think I have about 7, but as stated earlier, distance and driving is not as wide as yours. And to your point, there's probably a handful that I use on a regular basis. But multiple memberships requirements is part of the struggle that you need with that fragmentation. There are integrated options. So basically, this is interoperable across the same charging operator. You could also have a single membership and a roaming agreement. So some providers will have agreements with various charge point operators, providing you a single membership with a central clearing and roaming options that would give you access to multiple operators. This is the same as you would have as an experience with a cellular network. You never have full access, and you never have the guarantee that it will always work. But it addresses some of the fragmentation that you may have been experiencing. We have the external open. That's the example that we provided earlier with the additional hardware that you have. It is an expensive infrastructure requirement, and also the manual work of being able to go to each one of those charging stations in order to add that additional hardware. Plug and charge is an excellent way to work. It's transparent, it's integrated, and it's a really good user experience with a plug and charge experience. There are a lot of experiments that are being done to make sure that it is interoperable and the different implementations of the standard are working according to the needs expected. It still has the account requirement with a membership, and it's a closed loop operation. And then we have the option that was provided by EMVCo. So having an EMV on ISO 15118 to provide an open, interoperable, and integrated open payment infrastructure. So no membership required. You can use your payment card that you are used to use, and no account is required. So the credentials will be going on through the digital protocol that you have between the electric vehicle and the charging station. So our vision is really leveraging the existing standard that has been widely adopted with the ISO 15118 and provide that open payment experience similar to the plug and charge experience using cloud-based payment capabilities, meaning it's open and does not require any additional memberships on top of it. The specification is aiming to deliver a very simple and consistent payment experience. Basically, it's the same experience that you used to have with your cloud-based payment, and it should work across all multiple electric vehicles and charging stations. The same way it's working between multiple cards that you have and terminals on the other side. And it should be a seamless plug and charge user experience. It would provide choice and flexibility. So you could have multiple sources. You can use your card-based payment. You could be provided via the existing card that you have that you could tap within your vehicle. It could be via your phone that already has the payment credentials with a digital card. Or it could be an embedded token that you have within the vehicle. So that choice and flexibility has been thought through in order to address all the various use cases. Future extensions are being also discussed and talked about, and having a single, the focus is really on a single charging session. The idea is that you pay for your charging session the same way you would be paying for fueling your vehicle. Why do we mention choice? Obviously, if you have your favorite charging station operator with which you have a membership, you could choose to use that. But at the same time, it gives you the flexibility of being able to charge your vehicle and the peace of mind of being able to charge your vehicle without having to go through the whole membership and sign up requirements that is existing today. There are some regulatory requirements that are coming as well, which is saying that vehicle owners or electric vehicle drivers should have the possibility of being able to charge their vehicle without having to have a membership, especially in Europe. And it would be coexisting with existing payment options, such as the contract that we mentioned earlier. All in all, we want to have something that is scalable and simplified and a little similar to the experience that you already have with open payment in transit, and having these without the requirement of having external payment readers added to the charging stations. So this new payment specification would require support and implementation by both the electric vehicle manufacturers and charging station operators. So the card data sources, as we mentioned earlier, could be any consumer device. That could be your existing card. It could be your mobile device. It could be embedded within the vehicle. On the electric vehicle, the requirements is that you need to support the ISO 15118 protocol, and you need to add the support for the EMV electric vehicle open payment specification. The EV module will interact with the card data source, whether it's coming from your card, your phone, or the vehicle, and it would be protecting the sensitive payment data. At the charging station, same requirement for supporting ISO 15118, the same requirements to support the EMV EV open payment specification. And again, it will send the protected payment data to the acquirer and processor, which is protecting your card details all the way through to the acquirer and processor. So obviously we can't do this on our own, and on the industry engagement, we have signed several liaison agreements. We are now also participating to the ISO working group, the joint working group #1, in the technical committee 22, ST31, which is responsible for the ISO 15118 standard. This has been instrumental in order to make sure that the specification that we are developing would work with the existing ISO standard and would not require any changes to it. We have also a liaison agreement with Sharin. Sharin has been instrumental at actually having the wide adoption of the ISO 15118 standard through the plug and charge initiative that they have. They've had several events where they do the testing and the interoperability between the electric vehicles and the charging stations to make sure that the certificates and the contracts are working according to the specifications. And obviously the Secure Technology Alliance, STA, via the US Payment Forum that I mentioned earlier. So they have published a white paper back in 2021, which is called the Electric Vehicle Charging Open Payments Framework with ISO 15118. And there, the outline open payment need that they had identified has been sent to EMVCo requesting us to look into it. And we have created the task force last year on the back of that request that we had received. On this note, I'll hand it over back to Oliver.
Yeah, thanks, Arman. And this part is really the call to action. And I think Arman and I have both mentioned it a couple of times. We have at EMVCo a fair bit of payment experience and expertise, but we don't succeed on our own. So as much as possible, we'd love to have as much industry engagement as possible, as active engagement and collaboration are keys to our proven model for creating and evolving globally adopted specifications. And so we are looking for, as far and wide as possible, EV manufacturers and related associations, charging station operators and their related organizations as well, electric mobility service providers, and the electric vehicle technology partners, which could in fact include testing providers, chip providers, etc. So if you represent one of these organizations, we absolutely encourage you to become involved, become an EMVCo advisor to fully engage. And you can visit our EMVCo website and get involved. The final slide here will show a few of the ways that you can visit us. EMVCo.com is the easiest way. Feel free to reach out to us also on LinkedIn or any of these other channels that are listed here. So thank you, Arman. Thank you, everybody, for listening in and for your attention, and I wish you a nice day.